1914. In 24 hours, the world will change. The largest war that the world has seen up to this point will begin. Almost all of Europe, as well as many other nations around the world, will be pulled into this change. New tools will be used to maximize the amount of people killed in battle. Questions about the role honor has in war will be asked, and a devastating disease will show up that will end up killing more people than the war will. So what's the starting place for this war? What caused it to begin? The answer isn't simple. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a fight? This could be with siblings or a friend or someone you really didn't like. After the fight, if someone were to ask you, why did this happen? The answer might be easy. You might answer, because he was making fun of me, or because she took something of mine. Something like that. But stop and think about it for a moment. Maybe the answer isn't that simple. There might have been some other factors that played into your decision to fight. Maybe you and the person had disliked each other for a long time. Maybe he did something a long time ago that you haven't forgiven him for. Maybe she made fun of you in the past. Maybe he's been threatening to beat you up after school. Maybe she's interested in the same guy you are. These could be factors that led to the fight, factors that prepared the environment, the negative feelings between you and that other person. So finally, when something small happened, a fight broke out. World War I started because of a similar situation. There were a number of factors that created the right environment for war. Finally, all it took was one small event to start the fight. Let's take a look at some of the tensions that were going on in Europe that prepared the way for World War I. Cause 1. Imperialism. Have you ever played the board game Monopoly? If so, you'll remember that the goal is to own as many properties as possible. As you collect properties, you get more money and eventually become the most powerful player in the game. In the years leading up to World War I, the different countries of Europe were playing a sort of real-life game of Monopoly. But instead of properties like Park Place and Boardwalk, the properties they were competing for were territory around the world, especially Africa. By claiming territory in Africa, these European countries had access to raw materials that could then be sent back to Europe. Then these raw materials were used by factories to make manufactured goods that could be sold back to other countries or back to the territories themselves. The more land these countries could claim, the more money they could make. And as they increased their land, they viewed themselves not just as a country, but an empire. The term we use for this is imperialism. Just pronouncing the words empire and imperialism side by side, you can hear they sound very similar. Let's introduce another term here. Nationalism. Nationalism is a very strong feeling of loyalty for your country. It goes beyond patriotism. Citizens of that country feel that their country is better than all the other countries and deserves more. Citizens also use that country as part of their self-worth. To put it another way, people felt that they were worth more as a human being because they were a citizen of a certain country. So where was the tension? Why was imperialism one of the causes of World War I? Well, once most of the available land was claimed, tensions began between European countries. Jealousy and frustration were a part of this. When a nationalistic country couldn't get the land it felt it deserved, tensions arose. Let's go back to our Monopoly example. You may remember the feeling of playing a game where the best properties had been bought up by all the other people playing the game, and you were left with little or very cheap properties. Most likely you probably felt a little frustrated and didn't hold out much hope for winning the game. Maybe you felt like you deserved better properties or that the other players should have shared. This is the exact feeling that many nations in Europe were feeling at the beginning of World War I. Let's look at a second cause. Weapons buildup. Not only were European countries collecting territories, but they were also building up their weapons supplies. After all, if you view yourself as a great empire, You need the appropriate weapons to make sure no one else tries to conquer you. The problem was, once everybody started building up weapons, it became a race to stay ahead of the other countries. This resulted in the countries of Europe having large amount of weapons that they were storing up. Now let's think about this for a moment. When you get a new toy on Christmas Day, or you go to a store to buy something, you usually want to use it. So what do you think was going to happen when European countries paid a bunch of money to build new armies and navies and other weapons? Of course they wanted to use them, or at the very least show the world what they could do. This desire would also contribute as one of the causes of the war. The third cause, alliances. To get a better idea of this cause, let's look at a quick example first. Mario is having trouble at his school with a bully. The bully pushes Mario around and is always threatening to beat Mario up the moment no one's watching. Mario doesn't want to fight, but he also doesn't want to run. So he comes up with a solution. Mario pays a kid a few years older than him to go and talk to the bully. The message for the bully is, hey, look, if you beat up Mario, I'll come and beat you up. From then on, the bully leaves Mario alone, and Mario is satisfied because the situation is resolved without a fight. Now this agreement that Mario made with the other kid is called an alliance. It's an agreement where two people, or in our case countries, agree to help the other if one of them gets in a fight. Since others know about these alliances, they probably won't start a fight to begin with. The countries of Europe also used alliances. It was a great way to make sure people really thought twice before starting a war. However, in the case of Europe, the same tool that was supposed to prevent wars actually caused a bigger war. How? Because so many nations had alliances with each other, the moment one nation declared war, then everyone else they were allied to also had to declare war. At the beginning of the war, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. By looking at this illustration, you can see how all it took was this one declaration of war to get everybody else in line involved. The last cause we'll look at is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand was in line to become the next king of Austria-Hungary. The Archduke was visiting Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. On his way driving to the town hall, some Serbian nationalists attacked his procession. Their first attempt failed. However, later when the car slowed down, one of the nationalists, a man named Gavrilo Princip, was able to run up to the car and shoot the Archduke. Not long after, the Archduke died from his wounds. Because of this assassination, the King of Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia. He used this as an excuse to start a war. Once he declared war on Serbia, World War I began. So in summary, Europe had been prepared for war. The tensions from imperialism and weapons buildup had paved the way. The web of alliances made sure that once war started, it wouldn't just be between two nations. When the Archduke was assassinated and war was declared, it quickly turned into the largest war the world had seen up to that point. Although up until World War II it was called the Great War, today we know it as World War I. In our next lesson, we'll take a look at some of the new weapons that were used in World War I.